Hey guys, I think we are live. Welcome to the show. We'll wait a moment to get everybody on here. Just enjoying the weather. I don't know where you are in the country, but here in Virginia, the weather's been pretty nice. It was a little windy today, but the weather, just the sunshine and being out, everything's been just really nice. So that's been good, and business is starting to pick up as well because of that. A little bit of heat and so on. So hey to all of you guys that have already said hello in the chat. If you do have any heating and air questions, add those to the chat, and we will try to move along tonight. Maybe a little better than I have in the past, but tonight I don't have quite as much of a plan as I have in weeks past. It's been crazy. I've been dealing with some personal stuff and just been one of those, one of those weeks, I guess. So I do have, where did those questions go? We had our questions from last week. We started asking, and I was getting a little bit of feedback from you guys, and we were chatting about some of that stuff. So that was kind of cool. Maybe we'll start out with one of those questions tonight. Let's see. Do you think CRMs, and I'll get to what a CRM is in just a moment, but do you think CRMs are important when you are choosing an HVAC company, and if one follows up with you versus another, or tells you who's on the way? So a CRM it's a customer relationship management, I believe is what CRM stands for. And it's basically the software that a lot of heating and air companies use. There's different ones. And a lot of them do different things. So most of them are going to handle the scheduling in some way. So when you call in and give them hey, I'm Harry Homeowner, I need this work done, they're going to add you to their schedule in some way. And most of them have some sort of scheduling, some sort of invoicing and things like that. But some of them are a little different after that. So my question would be, does that play a role as a homeowner when you're selecting the company you're going to choose? Maybe you got a company that, maybe they call ahead, maybe their CRM can text you when that technician's on the way. I know some CRMs can even tell you where the technician is. And I've heard of, that can be a little bit of a headache for some technicians, because they're like, I just stopped for a hot dog on the way. I'm on my way. I haven't eaten anything all day. And you got the homeowner calling and saying, I see him. He stopped at the gas station. Get him here. I don't have AC. So that would be my first question tonight. What do you think about, when you choose a heating and air company, does the CRM they use play a role in your decision making on who you choose to do business with? And if it even matters to you, does it matter to you? Do you care? Do you care that you get a text message with a cute little picture of the technician when he's on the way and things like that? Or some sort of follow-up. A lot of CRMs have some sort of way that they can follow up with the customer and say, hey, how was your experience? Maybe you don't care about any of that stuff. Maybe you care only about, did they do a good job? Did they show up when they were supposed to? And, did the technician seem like he knew what he was doing and he wasn't taking advantage of you? So maybe the CRM could, matter very little to you. Is a humming contactor in the outside condenser? Well, there's contactors everywhere. There's contactors in the indoor unit as well. Now, not all indoor units. It depends on the setup, but some heat kits have contactors located on them. And then, of course, most outdoor units have a traditional contactor. So is a humming contactor in the outside condenser? I will say that the outdoor contactor is one of the components. If you were to take capacitors out of the mix and maybe thermostats out of the mix, contactors seem to be one of those components that would be next up when it comes to failures. We just had one the other day that the solenoid was not drawing what it should have been, and because of that, let me rephrase. The resistance was not high enough on that solenoid, and because of that, it was tripping the low voltage fuse. The amp draw was too high. Is a humming or buzzing contactor inside the outside condenser always need to be a replacement when it's near the capacitor? I wouldn't say it always needs to be replaced. I would just say that other than the capacitor, and I'm just trying to think of like some of the common issues. Obviously, capacitors are probably number one. I don't know that there's anybody that would disagree with that when it comes to summertime and these single stage systems. I would say capacitors are probably going to be one of the top things that fail on a yearly basis. You seem to have multiple customers, but I would say contactors should be on that list. Contactors do go bad. Those solenoids seem to fail, and so I don't know that they always need to be replaced, but they do need to be replaced from time to time, unfortunately. I have never had an experience with. Sorry, you guys are moving faster than I can read tonight, which is not that hard, right? I have never had an experience with the software. The small local HVAC company I use still uses phone and paper. Does not bother me. That's interesting. I've had customers say that does bother them, which is the reason we switched to a CRM years ago, because one example I can think of is we had files, and a customer would say, well, you were just out here and we'd have to go pull that paper, whereas with a CRM you could pull it up within seconds. But that's pretty, hey, no more power to them. If they're still out there providing good service and they're still using regular old paper invoices, then more power to them. I just want a human to answer the initial call, and a human say I'm on my way, and there in 15 to 30 minutes, call is appreciated. Yeah, I think that's a good one. I tell you, the other thing that I've noticed when I'm helping people with our guide, because sometimes I've got to contact other contractors and I'm helping the customer and so on, is I've noticed, especially there are certain parts of the country where a lot of companies have call services. So you call in and they answer it. And I can tell, as a business owner of a heating and air business, I can tell, not immediately, but I can tell pretty quick if I'm talking to someone that's actually working there and they're a part of the company, or if it's just a call service. And I'm not saying call services are really bad. It's just you're literally just talking to the middleman. And a lot of times, one issue could be, and I'm not saying this happens a lot, but it could happen, is as you're telling the answering service, hey, here's what's going on, here's what I need. Now they're taking notes. They're probably putting it into some CRM for the company, or some sort of, note or email, some sort of message for the company. And a lot of times not a lot of times, there are times that things could be missed in translation, things like that. So I'm not a fan of call services. I honestly, at our company, if we can't answer the phone, they go to voicemail and we return their call as quick as we can. But I can also see where, you might want to, every time you call, you want someone to pick up and you want a company that's going to care enough for that. Right. So I can see both sides of that. To that. My electric furnace has a contactor in it and it hums sometimes, but it's still functioning correctly. Yeah, they do hum sometimes. In fact, some of them will chatter. Now if they're chattering, it usually has something to do with either the contactor itself or the incoming voltage on that solenoid, but they do make a noise. They do vibrate. You're literally, a contactor there's this solenoid behind these contacts, and it pulls this block into the contacts. And so when it does that, the physical touching of that metal to metal, and you got the solenoid kind of holding it in there, it will hum, it will vibrate in there. And we have actually seen times when folks have had to put some sort of rubber in that, it's not, didn't come from the factory that way, but something in there to kind of reduce that vibration and help with that noise. So if humming, but AC is working well, no need to replace it yet. John, one could argue that it's on its way out, right? If it's humming and it used to not hum, but nobody's a psychic. Nobody can say, someone can say, well, look, that solenoid is probably not as strong as it once was. Maybe that contactor will fail soon. But if it's working correctly, in my opinion, nobody can tell you that you're going to get another 5 months or another 5 years out of that contactor. I think I would probably bet money that it's not going to last another 5 years if it's already starting to make noises that it didn't used to make. But it's certainly possible that it could last a while. A human answering the phone goes a long way. Just get there ASAP and fix the problem, always keeping the customer's best interests in mind. That's a great point, everything HVACR. Feel free to share where you're located. And so customers, if they're located in your area, I'm sure they, if that's something that you focus on and keeping the customer's best interests in mind, I'm sure folks would love to know where you're located. And if you're in their coverage area, I get folks I can't say every single day, but every single week we have folks emailing us or messaging us or commenting and saying, hey, I'm here. I'm in Cleveland. I'm in Dallas. I'm in San Francisco. Do you know anybody in my area? And unfortunately, I'm not that popular of a guy. I don't know anybody in a lot of these areas. I wish I did. I wish there was a way to, kind of create that camaraderie, that circle of friends, if you will, in each city. And there are different programs or different, organizations out there that are doing stuff similar to that. I know ACA has a base of contractors, but, we just get that question a lot. So yeah, definitely feel free. Bob, most HVAC companies around here call you ahead of time and tell you how soon the service person will be at your home. Even the cable company will tell you. Well, congrats on that. Bob, I got to tell you, that is not the case in every area. There are areas where in fact, when I started Griffin Air here locally, a lot of the folks that were from here were telling me that this area was called the promised land, where people would promise to be there at a certain time or a window of time and break their promises all the time. So commercial side is always, you were just here and worked on this unit. Yes. Yeah, we get that too sometimes. We'll do their maintenance and they'll say, you were just here last month. Didn't you know something was going to fail? You do your best, but Randy says, I wouldn't unless you have a problem with it, because it might keep working fine for years, even with the humming noise. And I know that because my electric furnace has been doing that for years. Good point. Emery says, how do you determine if a home needs more than one HVAC system? Well, most residential systems only go up to 5 tons. Now, there's exceptions to every rule, but for the most part, that's the general consensus across the industry. So if a home is bigger than, if it's a large home and the heat load calls for more than that, then that's one reason. But there's other reasons too. Like if you're going to zone it, for one might think, or one might say, if it's a 2-story house, 2 systems, 1 system per floor, and zone it that way. Install questions. Do you always weigh in refrigerant as well as check pressures? On an install, no, I don't always weigh in the refrigerant. In fact, I would say a percentage of our installs, you start the system up and you check the refrigerant. You do a proper subcool measurement or however you're going to check that refrigerant. And I would say a percentage of them, I don't know what that percentage is, but maybe 30 or 40% of them, we don't have to add anything to it. But, every now and then you get one that you got really long line sets, or for some other reason you have to adjust the refrigerant levels, but it's usually not much on an install. Also, do you pull your initial vacuum? How long do you hold it for? Do you always remove Schrader cores? Do I always remove the Schrader cores? No. I mean, honestly, not always. It's a good idea, depending on who's brazing and things like that. I do always flow nitrogen when brazing. That's a given. That's a not option. If we have someone we hire and they're not with that, they're not on board with that tactic, they usually don't last long with us. That's not an option for us. But if they're good at brazing and they can braze it and, take care of everything without having to remove cores and stuff, that's not as big of a deal in my mind. The hotter the torch, oxyacetylene torch, and you get somebody that really knows what they're doing, they don't need to remove the cores. But I will say I remove them from time to time, especially if I'm using a turbo torch. I will remove them. And then how long do I pull the vacuum? I pull it until I pull the amount of microns and it holds at whatever the instructions say to pull it at. So most systems, it'll say in the booklet what they want you to pull the vacuum to. Where's the Daikin versus Gree comparison? I thought that came out. Did it not come out? Let me look at my latest videos. Maybe it hasn't come out yet. I'm sorry. Let me look. Hold on one second. Great question. It's not there, so maybe it has not come out. Let me look in one more place. Give me 1 second here. Don't be mad at me, guys. Don't be mad. I know it's been recorded, but where it's at in the process, I've got to look. It's next. Believe it or not, it actually is next in line. So it should be coming out in the next day or two, actually. Our latest video, it may not be. It's either going to be the next one or it'll be the second one up next. So we do have a little bit of a process there, and I record one day and we edit and we keep them coming. So sometimes there is a little bit of a lag there, but I've already recorded it. It's already been edited. We've just got to do the final touches and the B-roll added to that video. So it'll either be the next video out or the one after that. KY, I work for a company, commercial side, Kentucky, KY. Does a modulating furnace use more gas than a single or two-stage furnace? I heard they constantly run and keep the house feeling more comfortable, but use more gas since it continues to run. So Ryan, I think in general, the reason the whole point behind a modulating furnace is so it doesn't consume as much gas. So I have not heard that before. And I can tell you that usually when you install a higher end, more energy efficient system, it's going to have a modulating valve. For example, if we do one of our 97% AFU furnaces, it's more times than not, it's going to have a modulating valve on there. So, I'm just skipping over a few comments, trying to get to the next question. John says, is there a meaningful difference between cleaning the outside coil with a hose from the inside or outside? It just depends. That's a great question. It depends on the system. I think that the in general answer, especially if you have a super dirty system, is you should probably clean both, right? Clean it from the outside and then clean it from the inside. But, shooting that water from the inside out in a lot of cases is the better way to do it, to get it the cleanest. But there's exceptions to every rule, you know. I've seen systems that even doing that, you're not getting it all off the outside of that coil, and you've got to kind of, you know, some of these systems you can even, you know, depending on the brand, you can take the actual shell off of the system and clean it up real good. If you have dirt on the outside of the coil and you blow it deeper into the coil, that might be bad. Residential probably don't matter, but commercial units may have double or triple coils. That's very true. But I will say we've seen double coils a whole lot more in residential with these energy efficiency ratings going up. I know some of these Bosch units have that, and then you'll see those train units. They'll sometimes have those spine fin coil, and it'll go, you know, it'll be layers of it in there on certain systems. Do you recommend having UV lights on both the return side and over the evaporator coil? I would say in general, yes. I think UV lights, the more the better. Obviously, they cost money. So sometimes we'll have customers that only want to buy one, they don't want to buy 5. So we'll buy, or we'll just sell one, and then we'll put it in the most logical location. So if I can get that thing shining on the return side of the evaporator coil, especially in an air handler, and also get it mounted in a way that some of the light is hitting the drain pan, the primary drain pan, the more light, the better. Then that's you know, a win-win. But I like for it to be on both sides of the evaporator coil. Remove for a faster vacuum. Yeah. I have another big question. How accurate are the Daikin 1 thermostats on humidity and temperature? I have options to calibrate the thermostat. My humidity seems to be off by 10%. I haven't really tested that. I do know that, and this is not just the Daikin 1. In my opinion, thermostats in general across the board over the years seem to have a little more discrepancy on checking humidity levels than an actual humidistat or psychrometer. But in my mind, it does. So I've always had this thought process behind humidistats, thermostats, any of them. Let's just say your humidistat or your thermostat that's checking humidity is off by 10%. As long as I know that, like I've figured that out and I know it's just off by 10, it's sort of like if you know your speedometer on your car is 5 miles off and you know it's 55 miles per hour is your speed limit, well, then you know that you can go 5 miles a little faster because there's that discrepancy, if that makes sense. So as long as you kind of know about it, it's, to me, and I've never cared. I mean, I've never cared in my own house. And, you know, the few customers that we have that do care, you know, I'll even tell them what I just said, and some of them are fine with it and some of them aren't, you know, and you've got to figure it out. You've either got to adjust it in the thermostat itself the best you can or replace it. I got a 20-year-old heat pump. How much more efficient would a new one be? Well, BTL, there's a lot of variables to that question. It would depend on what your SEER rating currently is. I can tell you this, in general, when systems start to get older, you know, with the heat transfer on coils and the, you know, life goes by and things like that, you know, that even a 20-year-old 13 SEER system is still not as efficient as a new 13 SEER system, if that makes sense. But also in addition to that, the efficiency ratings have raised. I think to answer your question, it's going to be more efficient. How much more efficient is hard to answer, but I can tell you that with the phase out of 410A, I would, if you can hold on, I probably would hold on a little bit. That's something that we're going to be doing a video on soon, where we're going to be talking about how there's going to be a little, if you have no choice, if you have no AC and you need AC, then you have no choice. But if you can hold on a little bit longer, it might be time to hold on. Hold on until these new refrigerants come out. We're there. We're that window is about to open. Now, has it opened yet? No, we're still months out probably. Last I checked, there's only a few states that have even approved A2L refrigerants. So with these new refrigerants coming out that are replacing 410A, if you can hold on a little bit, hold on. I wouldn't worry about the efficiency so much right now, but that's just me. You do you. I'm just saying, if you can hold on. I live in Petersburg, Virginia. Whoop whoop! Shout out to Virginia folks. That's where we're at too. We're probably about 2 hours from you, but I know where Petersburg is. I used to do heating and air in Petersburg, believe it or not. I live in Petersburg, Virginia, and decided to go from a heat pump to a dual fuel ream system on propane. What's the best temperature to set the gas threshold to? I'm thinking 35 degrees. I also burn a wood stove. So TTT 14, you need to search my videos and go to a video that somewhere in the title, it's got the word balance point in there, and you need to watch that video. And so it basically talks about what balance point is and how not all homes are created equal. So some folks might say, oh, I think that temperature should be 35. Some might say, yeah, but heat pumps are better today. I think that temperature should be 20, and the point being is you need to figure out what the balance point is for your home so you save the most amount of energy. And sometimes it might take a little bit of thinking or a little bit of process of elimination on the homeowner's part, but do your due diligence and it'll be worth it. Hit the like button, everything HVACR. Thank you. Yes, please hit the like button. I've been playing around with in our videos where, it has the little thing that pops up down here, right there in the videos. And then some of them, it says, hit the like button. That helps. Some of them, the comments help. So we're starting to maybe ask a question or get you to comment on the video and see if that kind of helps them perform a little bit better, and maybe see, get my fat face out there so more people can see me and try to help them through this process. But yeah, thank you for that. Please hit the like button. Tech Junkie says a lot potentially, but the ductwork will determine the overall efficiency. Emery says, how do you determine if the outdoor won't spin due to a capacitor or motor failure? I test them. I use my meter and I test them. How do you determine if the motor or if the outdoor fan won't spin due to a capacitor? Yeah, same question. UV is okay. The wall itself and the hole in the wall mess with them. It matters if the humidifier runs off it. Tech Junkie. I have air sealed the wall itself, and my old thermostat is actually mounted to a rigid foam board, then mounted on the wall. That's a really good point. I had a customer. It's funny you said that, Tech Junkie. I had a customer years ago. They had a Unico system, and they were getting some wonky, and I say wonky humidity readings, and that's what we had to do. We had to pull that thermostat off that did the humidity readings and seal that wall up and put it back. I feel like homes today are so tight that that's not as big of a deal as it used to be, but this house that I'm talking about was super old. So that happens. Which brands allow you to remove the outside case for easy access and cleaning? That sounds like a real competitive advantage, as it will encourage proper frequent cleaning. Well, I don't know if it encourages that, but it does encourage the technician to remove those panels and get them super clean. I don't know who all does it. I know Linux has some systems that was a thing for a while. And I'm wanting to say, maybe you guys can help me a little bit on this. I know some of you guys are techs in here. I want to say maybe Ream has a unit that has that ability to do that, maybe. But I know Linux did. In fact, I've seen YouTube videos on that exact subject. 50 to 70% if 10. Brian Chadwick, yeah, I checked with 2 different thermometers that have humidity on them and then my air quality monitor also. Brian says, holding on may add inflation. Yeah, that's true. Holding on may mean that you're going to spend a little more money on the install. That remains to be seen. But if you do hold on, my only argument would be we've seen what 410A has now done. We saw what R22 did when they got phased out, and these refrigerants just get super expensive. So if you've got a system with 410A refrigerant and you didn't hold on, you just didn't have a choice, then, you're going to have to pay for higher cost refrigerant. But who knows? I mean, those A2L refrigerants for one reason or another could be just as expensive, if not more. You just never know. I've seen some places only use flex ducts and only places that use rigid. Is there a reason to use one or the other? I heard use rigid for long runs and switch to flex the last 5 to 10 feet to vent. So Ryan, that's a great question. Different parts of the country do things differently. Humidity plays a role in that. I have friends that are in some very humid states and they run very little galvanized ductwork. They'll run ductboard a lot and things like that. Here in Virginia, we a lot of times will run galvanized, ductwork for the trunk line. And then in a lot of cases, we'll run flex for the branch lines, but sometimes we'll run hard pipe for the branch lines. It just costs more money to the homeowner because it's more labor to do that, so it just depends. And sometimes the customer's preference even plays a role in all that. But I don't know why you would use rigid for the long run and then switch to flex just the last 5 to 10 feet. That's interesting. I don't know what their reasoning for that would be. Tech Junkie. So late summer, the wall will get warm from the attic, and being a brick house, it sounds like it heat saturated, and around August, I end up setting the temperature up a little. Yeah, that's interesting. Let's see. Here's one. Let me ask you guys another question. Do you like to watch your HVAC tech work? Do you like to watch them? Do you like to kind of watch over their shoulder, make sure they're doing what they said they're going to do? I asked this question because this has always been a hot topic in the heating and air industry. A lot of technicians don't like it when the homeowner, kind of hovers over them. They don't like it when the homeowner stands there while they do their work. I've never had a problem with it. I have nothing to hide. And so I'm not saying every guy that is not a fan of someone hovering is hiding something, but I've always welcomed it. In fact, when I started my own business, I really wanted them to stay close by because it gave me an opportunity to connect with them. As a new business owner, I was able to talk to them, get to know them, connect, answer their questions, show them exactly what I'm doing. And it allowed me to, grow my business simply with the tactic of trying to connect with as many homeowners as possible. Using flex near the vents quiets the sound down. I've never heard that, Bob. That's interesting. maybe it's like a vibration thing. It kind of absorbs that vibration a little bit. That's interesting. We've never done that. Again, we'll run flex for the branch lines more times than not anyway. So I guess I've just never ran into that. And then the few times we've had customers specifically ask for rigid or hard duct all the way, I never really thought of it. But that's interesting. There's a lot of people that run rigid for the long runs and then switch to flex. The reason being is that the flex is almost always installed not using the best practices, and the last feet of flex is for noise. Yeah. So, okay. Well, that's two of you that have now said that. That's interesting. I've just never ran into that, That's interesting. Josh said, so a lot of you guys have said yes. Kachina Cottage says absolutely. But Josh says, no, you are the pro. I'm paying you to fix the problem. I have things to do as well. That's funny. Bob says, helicopter homeowners are never a problem for me. I've even heard guys say that they'll adjust their fees. They'll add higher prices to a homeowner that wants to stay close by. Believe it or not, I've heard techs say that. Gary says, Josh, with my guys, I hang out and they are good enough for me, video and photos for my house records, and they are great. That's awesome. Gary, feel free to share who they are, where you're located. And I have no problems with you doing a shout out to a great company. Gail says, the technician must be insecure. Yes, I like to be able to connect. I love your style and how you explained your relationship with the homeowner. Yeah, it just gave me an opportunity as a new business owner. I was trying to grow the company, and I wanted homeowners to stay close by as much as I could. I don't consider myself like the most personable person. In fact, I have friends that will yell at me sometimes because I don't always share my innermost secrets and things going on in my life enough. But I do think I have, I always try to connect with the customers, even if they're into stuff that I'm not, right? I'm not a big car guy. I wish I was. I like the look of some cars, but I just don't know much about them. I know way more about houses than I do cars. But if I saw that the customer was a car guy, I'd try to talk to him about cars. And I would even tell him, I'm not much of a car guy, but I think it's awesome that you are, Emery says, I love to watch my tech and learn about my system from him. That's another thing. Maybe the technician can teach you something. If they're a good technician and they don't have a problem with you standing there, giving you the opportunity to learn more. Maybe, they can say, hey, listen, right here's your air filter. I didn't know I had an air filter there. And I wouldn't have known that had we not had this talk, right? So that's great. I learned from the tech how to read gauges once. There you go. Gary says A+ HVAC and Westfield, Massachusetts. Awesome. Shout out to A+. What a great name, right? I remember when I first got into the trade, a guy was telling me that companies, because of the yellow pages in the phone book, they would always have A+ or A1 or ABC. They'd always try to be first with the alphabetical order so they could be first in line when someone would flip through the phone book. A lot of companies would have these, funny names so they could be first, and it's funny, even today that bleeds over. We have a company near us. They're not near us. They're probably about 2 hours away, but they're called A1. And then these guys are A+, so I just always think that's funny when I still see that today. So you guys so some of you homeowners, you like to hover over them, don't you? You like to stare over their shoulder and make sure they're not getting one over on you. Brian says, I worked for A Advantage in Manassas. That's great. Brian, you're the guy in Mechanicsville, right? We're supposed to grab lunch sometime or something. Or you're supposed to email me your info or something, if I remember correctly. Here is another question for you guys. Oh, Ryan. Ryan says, I don't mind watching some, but I don't like it when I have to help them fix what I'm paying them for. I got a soft starter installed, and I could tell it was his first one, and I had to help. Oh, that's unfortunately, or that's unfortunate. Emery says, "Are you near Richmond?" So where I live is about an hour and a half from Richmond. In fact, I was in Richmond all day today. I was telling you guys I'm dealing with some personal stuff, and that's why I was in Richmond all day today. So, all right. So here's our next question for you guys. Have you had an HVAC system replaced recently, and what did you go with and why? What did you go with? What brand? What kind of system? What was the SEER rating? And who was the company? And why did you go with them? That would be a great question to know. You know, what mattered to you? Was it a good warranty? Was it a good company? Was it a particular brand that you liked? G Griff, love the name, by the way. G Griff. My dad's first initial would be G, and his last name would be Griffin. So that's funny. Dad, is that you? G Griff says, would a low RLA level be due to low refrigerant? Well, before I sound like a dummy, what is RLA? What does RLA stand for? Rated load amps. Just want to make sure I'm answering your question correctly. Would a low RLA be due to low refrigerant? So low amp draw. It's a good question. Is it low on refrigerant? That's just such an odd question there. Would the RLA level be low due to low refrigerant? I guess it would probably draw less amps I don't know. It might be drawing more amps. I feel like if the system was starving for refrigerant and it was running a whole lot longer and it gets hotter, hotter to the touch, I would think your RLA would be higher. I could be wrong on that, though. Brian, what do you think? Tech Junkie says, I went with a Daikin Fit because of you, but the company that put it was the highest rated family-owned company that we have locally. Tech Junkie, who was it? Please share. Brian says, I added a Gree and moved to the Amana to the garage, set from 2-stage to 1. Emery says, I had a system replaced in 2015, and the dealer we went with sold Linux, and they were rated best in town. That's great. Josh says, condenser and coil, 5 years old, Goodman, friend of a friend, Dominican who spoke Spanish. I speak English, language barrier. Price was great, no paperwork, not registered, no 10-year warranty. Interesting. So, Josh, do you feel like you made a good choice there? I mean, you saved money, but in the long run, was it a good choice? I'm just curious. Brian says, yes, it can be low until friction. Interesting. So, yeah, Brian says that your RLA could be low because of low refrigerant. I guess I've just never dealt with that because I've never walked up to a system and figured out that it was low in refrigerant and then said, well, let me see what my amp draw is. I've just never really fooled with any of that. Maybe I should have been more curious, but if I had a system low on refrigerant, I just figured out why and fixed that, and then made the refrigerant not low. Tech Junkie says W.C. Butler. Wonder if Butler. Kind of feel like I've heard of those guys. The Daikin does a good job where they will throw names out there of companies. They try to lots of Brian Orr. And I feel like I've heard of them before, Tech Junkie. I don't know. It could be just all in my head, but I feel like I have heard of them. Josh says, I have a 50-foot line set, and he did not add for additional line set. I had to call out a local company after to add the correct charge. If it works for another 5 to 10 years, it was an okay deal. Even paying the second company to fix the charge, I can only hope he pulled proper vacuum, etc. on the initial longevity. Yeah, I mean, moisture in the system is part of this, but, you know, I would also say sometimes the cheap guy doesn't braze properly, didn't flow in inert gas and so on, and that can definitely lessen the life of that system. You probably have. I think they may have been the first in Virginia or in the distribution region to install a fit. Interesting. Yeah. I can tell you this. I went to a dealer meeting years ago when the fit first came out in our area. And I was at this meeting, and they said the first 5 people to install the Daikin fit. Let me show you guys. Hold on one second here. I'm going to show you. Daikin fit. I'm going to show y'all. Okay, here we go. So Precision Air out of Tennessee, I think this says, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. They've got this sign. Let me show you. Share this tab. So check out this sign. I'm going to show you guys. My home is now fit. And so when the Daikin Fit first came out, they were giving these signs out to everybody. And so I was at this meeting, and they said the first 5 guys to install a fit in this class or this meeting and show the customer holding the sign with their new system, they gave us TVs. Now, it wasn't a big, I mean, it was a small TV, but it was still kind of cool. Well, we ended up putting it in our guest bedroom in our house, and it was a free TV. So just a little tidbit for you guys. Josh says, then I took classes at a local college and received an EPA universal, slowly buying all the tools. Good enough. So you're gonna be able to just install it yourself, obviously. Brian says the fit was promised by East Coast. We will see. Are you talking about the distributor, Brian? Do you use East Coast and there in Mechanicsville? Tech Junkie says, Josh, why don't you just get into HVAC then? Yeah, why don't you? If you're going to have all the stuff. It won't be too much longer. I think that we're going to have a huge shortage and not just labor, but just guys that know what they're doing. And so you're going to see homeowners becoming a lot more educated. Thank God there is the internet, right? For you guys to be able to research your own stuff and understand a little bit better what's going on. I've never been a fan of DIY stuff. I don't do DIY videos, but I can see why a homeowner, at least would want to know what's going on a little bit these days. It's going to be interesting, especially in the next decade, to see how things go. Tech Junkie says, I can't even get hired, and I'm willing to learn, even take a pay cut. Yeah, you need to move down here, Tech Junkie. We've had a rough go at it this year, finding good help. So it's been our single biggest struggle, I would say, finding good folks. We've gone through some folks. Let's just put it that way. Josh says, I do it slightly in my day job, stationary engineer apprentice, work with low pressure chillers, make good money, 100K. I would be hard pressed to do HVAC residential and make that. Do you and save myself? Yeah, you're right on that, Josh. No comment on that. So let's see. I had one question that, let's see. What do you... Yeah, I had one question from last week that I think we did get to that one. But anyway, anybody else have any questions? Heating and air questions, heating and air related. Don't try to stump me because you probably will, but something we can chat about. I was talking to somebody the other day about their warranty, and they were telling me that so in some states, just so y'all know, there are let me back up. So the state that I live in, and in a lot of states, if you buy a heating and air system, it will come with a certain warranty. And then if you register it, you get a bigger warranty. So for example, if a lot of brands, it'll be like a 5-year warranty. And then if it gets registered, you might get a 10 or even a 12-year parts warranty. But in some states, I think California is one of them. They have banned that. They have said, if you're going to sell a product here, you don't get to do this registration stuff. We want, you have to provide a certain warranty right out of the box, one way or the other. And so, the whole challenge, I was talking to somebody the other day and they were saying, I had somebody install a system, and then I didn't find out until later that they never registered the warranty for me. So this kind of gets back to that, hovering over your heat and air guy. I don't think, it's necessarily hovering over them, but just staying on top of them and making sure that if you bought a new system, that warranty gets registered, even if you have to register it yourself. And most websites, most good brands, you can register it yourself. There are a few that you can't. I'm not going to mention who they are, but you can figure it out yourself. You just go on their website and see if you can register a warranty. But most good brands, you can register the warranty yourself. Like, for example, we sell Daikin. You go right on Daikin's website. You can register the warranty as the homeowner or as the contractor. They don't even care. They're going to ask you who the contractor was that installed it, so that they know that it was installed by a licensed contractor, but they don't care who's registering the warranty. It can be the homeowner. All right, we've got a few more questions that have come in. Emery says, first of all, NF, thank you for your kind words. Emery says, is there any other heat load calculation protocol, or is it just manual J? I think manual J is pretty much the industry standard. I think there are other thought processes, maybe it would be a good way to say it. One example I can think of is a lot of systems are, so here in Virginia, when they do a proper heat load calculation or heat loss, they are they in the AC mode, they're going to size it so that on a 95-degree day, it will lower the temperature to 75 degrees. That's the way the system is sized. Okay. And you might say, well, Josh, 75, if it's only going to lower it to 75, that's a problem for me. I like my house to be a little cooler than 75. The thought process is, and at least here in Virginia, it doesn't get to above 95 that often. And so it's those mild days that you still need the system to run for a little bit longer, extended run times, and still remove humidity. But that, sorry, I'm reading some of your comments and I'm losing my train of thought. But anyway, the point is, I think that it could be safe to say that you might say, well, look, I don't want to size it for that. I want to use a different thought process there for one reason or another. Another example might be, depending on the space itself, there are spaces that you simply do need it to be lower than that. So one might be a computer room in a commercial application where they need that space to be cool year round. So whether it's super cold outside or super hot outside, they need that room to be cool for that computer equipment. So that's always, just one that I always throw out there. But there's other commercial atmospheres that break these rules as well. But just in general, manual J is going to be your industry standard. But there are other times out there that you might be, thinking of other things there. Tech Junkie says, I would, but I don't think I can. Wife wants to move to North Carolina or further south. She can't take the cold because she has Raynaud's syndrome. I'm sorry to hear that. I probably didn't pronounce that right either, but that's unfortunate. And if she wants to move further south, you move her further south. Take good care of her. Ryan says the Daikin, Goodman, and Amana split systems look the same, but do they charge contractors different prices for those? Strange that they look the same, but might charge different prices. It just depends, Ryan. I mean, sometimes the systems are very, very similar, if not the same, but maybe they have a different warranty, or maybe they have, one heat exchanger might be steel when the other one's aluminum, or the other one's stainless steel, so there's just so many variables to that. I can tell you that is one of the reasons I switched to Daikin. I felt like I was getting unfair pricing on other brands. You would think that if you were selling a product, and I'm probably giving you, especially you guys that are homeowners, I'm giving you way more behind the scenes than you care. But I'm just going to be real honest with you. I have noticed over the years that a lot of heating and air brands will get their talent. You other guys that do heating and air, you tell me if you have experienced this, because I've experienced it at least twice that I can think of. And that is, these companies will offer you like a low price. They'll say, yeah, come sell our stuff. Look at the pricing we're offering. And then once you get in there and you're drinking the Kool-Aid and you've put it on your website, and you maybe you've even put it on your trucks and your clothes, and you're installing this brand, you're invested now. Once they get their talons in you and they're like, I got one, they start to raise their prices a little bit here and there. And I think it should be the other way around. I feel like once you are in there and you're invested and you're selling more of their equipment, the prices should come down. But that's just been my experience with other brands. And Daikin has been, at least our particular supplier, has been always very fair to us on that front. So just throwing that out there. Brian says they change different amounts and help the contractor with higher end equipment. I will say that when it comes to those three brands, and not just those three, but just most brands, when you start to get to the higher end stuff is where you might see differences. So, for example, one could argue, well, there's not much difference between a single stage 14 to 16 SEER Carrier or ICP. There's not a whole lot of difference. But then you start to get to the higher SEER stuff, and there's a lot of difference, right? Same goes with Daikin and Goodman and Amana. Same goes for Train versus some of their lower end brands, and so on. Trying to make sure I don't miss anybody here. Kachina Cottage says, when will Daikin introduce the R32, the fit line up? I have not gotten an answer on that yet. I have asked. I think it's coming. I think over the next 12 months, you're going to see not just the fit, but you're going to see a lot of products start to roll out where these folks are starting to have these new, and really it's not the manufacturers that are the holdup right now. It's the states. So the states have to approve these A2L refrigerants across the board for the manufacturers to be able to sell the products in their state. And I think only a handful of them right now have approved them. So that's the holdup right now. Bob says, I was trying to find the video here of Hvac, couldn't find anywhere. I'll look into that, Bob. I think that, let me look up one thing here. Yeah, I did a video on that, on that. So I did that. Bob, if you go back through my videos, I have a video on that exact program. I go through it, pretty much an overview. I dive a little bit deeper into it. I'm wanting to say the video is called something to do with maybe money, tax money, or Inflation Reduction Act, but we go through that exact program. That's why I wanted to look it up. So Brian says, get below dew point and hello growth. A smart stat running for a while with an operating will show short cycle and help confirm sizing. They make you pay to sell higher end equipment. Higher end becomes a dinosaur after warranty expires. Uncle Fester says, I have a 15-year-old two-stage Goodman. When the system is shutting down, the burner hammers and pops as the flames go out. It's not the duct or sheet metal. That could be a couple things. If it's always done it, I would maybe look at your I would look at maybe your valve, but I would also look at your orifices, make sure they're good and clean and things like that. That's just a few things that I would maybe check first. And obviously have a pro do that. So, and that is assuming that they've run a manometer on it and made sure that the pressures are good to start with. But I've seen some systems make noises and things like that, and then you switch to you switch the gas valve, and it helps with some of that stuff. Let's see. We did have a few questions come in on our email this past week. Some of them I'm not going to go through for one reason or another, but let's see. So today's the 18th. So a week ago would have been the 11th. Sorry, I'm just reading this. I recognize that they can be highly useful older unit. I'm not sure what exactly these folks are talking about. Here's a telemarketer. Bear with me, guys. I want to see if we. So here's another customer that emailed us this past week asking us if we knew anybody in their area. Here's one. Craig Bledsoe says, I found your YouTube channel online and thought it would be very helpful and informative. I have a question on how to enable remote temperature sensing for a new Rheem heat pump HVAC that was recently installed in my garage because the Honeywell 6210 thermostat was connected via direct wire to the inside of the main hall of our home where my wife wants it. Therefore, the thermostat's internal sensor has no idea about what is going on out in the attached garage. We are located in the desert outside of Vegas. To replace the installed thermostat mentioned above, I have purchased a Vision Pro 8320 and a wireless sensor. Here in the desert, there is no internet available. I'm sorry, so it is unclear to me whether the new thermostat. So this guy's asking a very specific question about a product. If this technique will not work, should I return these units and purchase the 6220 thermostat and hook it up? Blah blah blah. Craig Bledsoe, are you on our show tonight? Let me know. I have not looked up these specific products. I am trying to understand why we had a heat pump HVAC system that was recently installed in my garage because the Honeywell. I'm trying to figure out if you're saying that your thermostat is located in a different part of the house. And I think that is what you're saying as I'm reading through it again. So you're saying that a system was installed in the garage, but your wife wanted the thermostat inside the house to be able to control the temperature out in the garage, which is interesting. So any indoor temperature sensor should, I think to answer your question, as long as it's set up correctly, just about any indoor temperature sensor should be able to help you, Craig. So if you're on here tonight, please let me know. I don't know what your screen name is, but I think that should answer your question. He's basically saying that he had a heating and air system installed in the garage, but then they wanted the thermostat located inside the home for that heating and air system. And so he needs to have a temperature sensor installed out there to tell the thermostat the exact temperature, what's going on. So, I appreciate you guys being real informative, but, you know, as you've seen, I'm not the fastest reader in the world. Tech Junkie says, I found your YouTube channel online, unquote. Well, where else would you find it? Walmart. Tech Junkie, I get these funny emails. So we get these emails where they'll say, hey, we found your website and it's horrible. Your website is horrible and we can help you be ranked higher on Google, and you should pay us money to do that. And I'm like, you know, my office manager and I, just the other day, we were laughing about it because I'm like, if it's so horrible, if it's just absolutely so bad, how did you find me? How did you find the website? You know, how could it be just that bad? Maybe I'm taking it a little more personal because I built the website myself, but I think that's so funny. Ryan says, when buying a new system, salesmen would say it's slow now, so you'll get the best price. Do the manufacturers charge more for units at different times of the year, or do you have contracts on pricing? So I don't really have a contract on pricing. I have a supplier. So I don't deal directly with the manufacturer in a lot of cases. And in my area, I never have. Now, I do have competitors that they'll deal with some sort of supplier that is directly owned and connected to their manufacturer. But in our particular situation, we're dealing with a distributor, a supplier of the equipment that we're selling. And so to answer your question, I don't necessarily have a contracted price, but they don't adjust their pricing throughout the year. Now, one thing that some manufacturers will do is per quarter, they'll adjust their rebates and the rebate amounts based on what they're trying to sell, push, things like that. I can tell you that, like, for example, the Fit right now has an $1,100 rebate for now. Now that could change, you know, if you're watching this after this was recorded, you know, that could change, but it's $1,100 right off the top. And it's not a fake rebate. It's a real rebate. And so, you know, so I don't know if that answers your question specifically. I can just tell you that my supplier does not adjust the pricing. I don't have higher prices in the summer versus the winter and things like that. Now I will say, because Tech Junkie just said it, I will say that contractors will change their pricing as the year goes by based on how busy they are. Some contractors do that. We've always tried to not do that at Griffin Air. We will adjust our price for other reasons, but not because of how busy we are. And now I know I get all these jokers on here and they'll say, well, it's simple supply and demand. You don't understand supply and demand. I do understand it, but I also understand that if I'm providing a good price, a fair price throughout the year, there are going to be homeowners that in the off season, when they can get a better deal elsewhere, they might do that. But I have always felt like taking advantage of somebody just because I'm super busy they can say that's supply and demand, but to me, it's just not good business. It's not a good practice. And so that's not something I've ever done. So, you know, companies do that. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just not something I've ever felt good about. Tech Junkie says, I'm not very good with wording, but I find that funny. Ryan says they basically admitted that they'll charge way more certain times of the year, and that turned me off from all of those companies. I actually, Ryan, I would actually say it's kind of nice that they're being honest about it. because there's a lot of guys that won't be honest. Like, so they'll get on my channel here. I did a video where I talked about this, and they, I've actually gotten hateful emails sent directly to me about this particular topic, where people feel like I should not be telling homeowners their secrets. And that was not my goal. It's more of, to me, if you get an honest company that says, look, we adjust our pricing, we do raise our prices when we're super busy. So if you can kind of wait a little bit until we're not so busy, we'll give you a deal. We got to keep our guys busy. So that's something to, maybe throw out there. Maybe it's kind of good that they're honest about it. Honesty is always a good thing in my book, especially if you're doing business and you're talking about this kind of money. We're going to wrap up in just a moment, guys. We are running at about an hour and 10 minutes. So if you do have a question, please get them in here. And I'm going to try to come back with some new questions next week, help you guys help each other, and so on. But we are going to wrap up here in just a moment. One thing I usually do is I'll tell you about some upcoming videos before we wrap up. As Cucina Cottage pointed out, we do have that Gree versus the Fit video coming out soon. I will tell you guys, I did not get super techie with it. I didn't get into, this one has an HSPF of this and that. I was trying to be more practical. If you're actually in the market and you're buying one or the other and you're comparing and looking around, and I get into some things that maybe you want to maybe take a peek at. But other than that, I don't get super techie on there. Ryan, thank you for your kind words. Emery says, what is the oldest air conditioner your company has ever worked on? I know the oldest one I've ever replaced. That is an easy one for me. I replaced a GE years ago that I don't think it had worked in a long time, but it was one of the types that it looked like it had two legs. So let me try to explain this. So it had like the top part that had two fans, almost like a rooftop, an RTU on a commercial unit. So it had two fans, and then it came over like a slab coil almost, and then it had two legs. And it was very interesting looking outdoor unit. And that booger was, I want to say it was built in the 60s, late 60s. So again, I don't remember if it was necessarily operable when we jerked it out, but I just remember, and this was just a few years ago, thinking, I was like, geez, this thing is a whole lot older than me. So that's probably the oldest one that I've ever, and then the oldest boiler that I've ever seen. I saw one time that was, I want to say it was built in the 30s, I think. And that was just a residential boiler. I used to manage some buildings that we had some boilers that were older than that. And one of the buildings, you could see where it used to have a coal boiler. So we're talking about an historic part of Richmond. And there was, you could see it down in the basement where this boiler area was, these metal. Now today, they're just completely shut. They've been sealed off. But back then, you could see where they would actually pull out on the little metal slide, I guess. It was like this big giant metal ramp. You would kind of open it up, and then they would shovel coal into that slide there. And so that was interesting and kind of cool to kind of see how it was. Now, I never laid eyes on the actual coal boiler at that place, although I have seen one once. But that was pretty cool. And good question, by the way. Let's see. I'm drawing a blank on this other video that we have coming out that's already edited. I've just got to get the B-roll added to it. That's why I wasn't sure. But see, I don't have it on my normal area. But anyway, we do have another video. I don't remember what that one was about. And then we should have, let's see, we've got one coming up And I'm not going to tell you exactly right now what it's about, but let's just say it's very controversial. That it's the video itself is going to trying to think of the best way to word this. But this one is set to be recorded in the next day or two. And it's going to talk about, the reason I say it's controversial is we're going to talk about doing business with people that are different than you. Let's put it that way. And so we're going to talk about some of that and some of the situations that I've run into over the years. And so I think that's especially in today's climate, some of the things out there, you may not care to even watch that video, but I just thought it'd be an interesting video to talk about some of these things that I've run into, especially again, in today's climate and some of the things that we're seeing companies do, companies take positions on and things like that. We also have a video coming up on ventilation and the advantages of ventilation, especially if you live in a newer home. A lot of folks don't even really think about what HVAC actually stands for, but there's the H and there's the AC, and then there's a V there. There's a V in the middle. And a lot of times in residential, ventilation is overlooked. So we're going to talk about that in that video, and how ventilation is not just something you can do, something to kind of help. We have actually had homeowners specifically say they feel better. They feel better after adding ventilation to their home. So that's going to be a video coming up as well. So anyway, if you have any video ideas, suggestions, or questions, I'm going to put a video or an email in the chat right here that you can send an email to, and we will do a video possibly on that particular topic. If you send me a real specific question, I don't always do videos on that. So like this guy that sent me this video, his email saying, hey, this is exactly what's going on. This is the exact thermostat. It's hard for me to always stop and do videos on that. I don't have but so much time. But if you have a suggestion or a question that you think would make a good video, definitely send it to that email I just put in there. Ryan, this is going to be our last question of the night. Ryan says, not sure. Oh, it's not even a question. So if you do still have a question, throw it in there. Ryan says, not sure I can take credit, but I asked about the heat recovery heat pump last week and saw the video this week. That was cool. And you turned that around fast, but you may have already recorded that. So yeah, I don't remember how that all worked, but it's a long story. But I've got a few folks helping me editing, and some videos made it out faster this past week. Let's put it that way. And some of the comments, if you guys read the comments on those videos, some people are talking about some of because I didn't even get into all the different units that do heat recovery. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. It's what heat recovery is a mini split system where a lot of folks don't realize if they don't have one, but if you have an outdoor unit with multiple indoor units, multi-zone mini splits, they all have to be in the same mode for them to operate correctly. And with heat recovery, you don't have to. That you can have one in AC, one in heating, one in off, and so on. And so anyway, we did a video on that. Check that video out if you haven't seen it. But some of the comments, they're talking about some of the systems that are rated for single phase wiring, like in residential and in a home, because not all of them are, right? There are some systems that are rated for 3-phase wiring that you don't see in residential very much. That's more of an industrial thing that you see in factories and instances like that, more commercial industrial type atmospheres. So, all right, guys. Well, I don't see any more questions. Thanks for sticking around. Again, send me an email with any questions you have to that email. Other than that, thank you for your support. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I just appreciate all the support you guys have been giving us. It always, I feel very humbled, and I do thank you. So, see you guys next week. Same time, same place, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. and we'll be live again. Gary says, Josh, I am the guy that wrote you about the Mitsubishi system and unable to run the fan mode when another yeah, there you go. So that's how some of those systems are set up, Gary. Unfortunately, it can be very frustrating, especially when those systems are on different levels of the home. You're like, daggone, I just need a little heat. Do I need to run upstairs and switch that system to heat now? Unfortunately, it's just the technology those systems use with the metering devices being in the outdoor units. I think that's part of the reason that they have to be all in the same mode, So, all right, guys. Well, thank y'all again. We'll see y'all next week, 8:30, same place, live. And thanks again. Have a great week.